welcome to Behind the Message. We are in week 3 of our Starting Over series. I'm Sherry Banky. I'm part of the small groups team here at our Naperville Yellow Box location, and I'm joined by our teaching team leader, Tammy Malchine, today. We're going to talk about week 3, but this is the 3rd week of a long series, and something you may have noticed in this scene is this wall back here that has kind of all these icons, pictures, and words, and that's from week 2. So if you have not caught up on this series, I just encourage you right now, press pause on watching this, go back and catch up, because our conversation is going to make way more sense if you're caught up on this series as we're talking about starting over. And so if you've listened to Tammy's message, you would know that she leaves us with a cliffhanger in the message, and she talks about her dryer being broken. And I was like, what happened with the dryer? You Googled it, you did your troubleshooting.
Unfortunately, I had to get a new dryer.
Oh my, okay.
It was, not worth repairing.
So the dryer had to completely start over.
Yes, I started over with a new dryer, and it's been fine ever since. So there you go.
Very cool.
There's a good redemption story.
Awesome. I knew you were hanging on the edge of your seat wondering what happened. No. I love that we start off this series talking about dogs, because I myself am a dog person.
Yes.
And you had a dog. Would you consider yourself a dog person too?
I like puppies and little dogs. I probably wouldn't say that I'm a dog person per se, but yeah. But someday I might get a little dog again.
Oh, okay.
But, when I don't need to be home, or when I can be home all the time.
That makes sense. They do require that attention, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I am a dog person. I regret that I did not become a dog person sooner, because I love my dogs.
Follow her on social media for all the pictures of her dog.
Exactly. That's what I post. Not my children, just my dog. Sure. I love Greg's story in this message series, and I love how he's so vulnerable and really just shares a deep regret that he has experienced in his life. But it is a really heavy story, and I wondered if you could tell us a story maybe about a time when you had to start over in your life. Yeah,
I think, I don't want to cheapen it and just make it some little tiny thing like I bought the wrong thing at the grocery store, not that. Right. So, when you ask me that question, the first thing that comes to my mind was, a time when I was in a role in ministry that I had pursued and I had stepped into, and a couple years into it, realized it was just not the right fit for me. And I did hold on to it for a while because, there's a lot of security in being employed, and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I remember coming to the point where I just had to be honest with myself, but honest with my direct report, and say, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this. And I felt like I had to, that was part of the release for me. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that it would lead to what is, now been my favorite role that I've ever had in leading our teaching team here. But just the way that God had worked that out. And, it was a reminder to me that even when, something you have to let go of, that God has you, and he has purposes, and he has dreams, and he has things that he wants to do in your life that you can imagine. That's a little bit where we're going to go the next week in the series. Awesome. But, in order for me to kind of have that moment of starting over, I had to come to that moment of recognizing and releasing.
Oh, wow.
So,
and you do a fabulous job of leading our teaching team. Our
you.
Message series that you've seen over the several years have been definitely through your leadership. So I am grateful that you made that release.
We have a great team.
Yes, that's for sure. A team that you've built. So whenever you think about that process of starting over and the releasing, did you have to go through those forgiveness questions? Forgiving other people, forgiving yourself, asking God for forgiveness. What did that look like?
Some of it is you go through, if you've ever been in a situation like that, you go through, there is a forgiving of yourself in the sense of, because you deal a little bit with how come I don't have what it takes to do this?
Yeah.
Or how, so there's some of that of just and again, there's nothing wrong with it, me not being the right fit for that.
Sure.
It was me just being willing to say, okay, this was a mistake. And that in some senses feels like a hard word, because I feel like if I hadn't had that experience, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing right now too, because there were parts of it that really led me into this. But yeah, so there is a forgiveness of self. I think I think sometimes, and maybe this is a caution for us sometimes, when we have something in our lives that is a regret and we're holding on to, sometimes rather than recognize it and face it and release it ourselves, we tend to like blame it on other things. Okay. We blame circumstances, we blame other people.
Right.
And, you know, and there might be some truth in some of those things that we need to like extend forgiveness, you know, but oftentimes it's also like just about realizing the pain that I'm feeling is about my own regret, not what everyone else has done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
how long was that process for you?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I mean I mean, in all, it took several years. I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you know, you make those decisions, but then you have to still let go of the, you know, of the. I mean, I think we're all like that. It's you know, even when you release something, and that's part of the series. You're making me get ahead of us in the series because the last week of the series is the starting, like replacing the sorry cycle with the starting over loop.
Okay.
Because one of the things about our regrets is they're not, you know, you recognize it, you release it, and you allow God to work his work of redemption, but it doesn't mean that thing is never going to come back.
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
And so part of it is sometimes you can start to all of a sudden feel the shame or feel, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
The story of that you know, you learn though to live in this, wait a minute, I already recognized that, I already released that, and I'm already open to God redeeming it. So I'm not going to let myself get stuck back in that sorry cycle.
Right.
You know, there's definitely a period where it's most intense and you learn to let go and move. But you know, it's also something that you have to continue. And, you know, we talked about Greg's story, you know, which, you know, his story is pretty intense, especially because of the young age, but it's not an uncommon story of regrets having to do with alcohol or drugs or something like that. And you talk to anybody that's been through 12 steps or that, it's a regret that there's an intense period of letting go of and releasing and moving forward. But it's something that they will have for the rest of their lives to pay attention to, you know. So.
And I think that's a good point, because we think it's kind of a one and done, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we drop the stick, we move on. But I like that image of the dog that we use, because the dog will pick it back up again, right? We pick it back up, and I think it's letting those regrets teach us for the next opportunity whenever it comes up that we learn in real time to be able to kind of go through that process.
And it's about really doing the work of it. Because I think what you're saying is what we typically do. We'll be like, okay, that's over, I'm done.
Yeah.
But then we find ourselves right back in that sorry cycle, you know, because we haven't really done the work. And you know, that's work that we need to do with God and reflection, but sometimes that's also work we need to do with a counselor or with a trusted friend or spiritual advisor, because, you know, our deepest regrets have a power in our lives that can be broken if we will do the work.
Right. And I know in week 2, we talked about it being a secret, and most people keep like 5 secrets. That's something that we talked about as well.
Yeah.
So it is important to kind of bring that out, whether it's through this imagery that we use here or the journaling that you talked about, that these are practices that we can do on a regular basis, not this kind of one and done thing, but life helps us revisit, I think, these scenarios that kind of happen in our life that bring up the sorry cycle, that require us to start over, maybe even on a daily basis, right? It's not just in the big things, but even in the small things. I think about, you know, maybe whenever I yelled at my kids or something like that, and just starting the day over and not letting the whole day like kind of go down the drain, but just learning kind of to do that in real time.
Which is why it's great that God's mercies are new every morning.
Yes.
As the scripture says.
I know. I love the cycle of 24 hours. That does give us an opportunity to kind of revisit that. I know I got you ahead of the message a little bit, because next week we're going to talk about redeeming our regrets. And that is something you definitely want to tune into. So if you haven't caught up on the message series, I highly encourage you to do so. Make sure you tune in next week, because we're going to finish up, or actually we're not finishing up. We got 5 weeks.
We have 3 more weeks of the series.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And something special as we wrap it up, right?
Yeah, the last week is something special.
Yeah,
so stay tuned for that.
Definitely. And as always, for any information that's going on here at Community, please visit us at communitychristian.info. But have a great week. Thanks for joining us.
We're going to talk about Sherry's regrets today.
Okay.
So we got a lot of regrets, okay? The regrets are bringing all of these sticks to work with me today.
Oh my God.
Pick one. Which one's your favorite?
Release them, Alec.
Why do
Release
you have
them.
so many sticks in the first
They
place?
came with an assortment of regrets for me to choose
I
from.
know.
People don't realize, how much thought and effort we put into these things to get the exact right